Hey, everybody, welcome back to Beer Time with Big Bird, that Friday night drinking show where we just crack open a beer and have a good time. And I don't want to spend too much time a-wasting before we dive into today's topic because it's ongoing, breaking news, and it's epic. Hey, Deborah. Hey, Kevin. Thank you all for joining me. If you, as the title of today's video goes, we're going to be getting into the breaking news that is the Twitter fuckery with the Hunter Biden laptop story. It is currently breaking over Twitter via Matt Taibbi, which is going to be interesting. So we're going to go ahead and crack ourselves a beer, and then I'll talk a little bit about how this whole thing has gone down this afternoon, and then we're just going to start tearing into this very lengthy Twitter thread from Matt Taibbi about all the fuckery over at Twitter with the Hunter Biden laptop story. And at the rate he is releasing the thread, I have a feeling we're not going to be able to finish it before the show is over because he's been doing it for a little over an hour now. And we're up to 29 posts, I think, right now. But we'll get into that in a minute because it's Friday. And where's my glass? That means it's time for a beer. And we got an extra special beer today because this is a seasonal release from my favorite local brewery, and it's called Festive Mother. And this is a 12, well, they say it's 11% alcohol. I think it's 11 point, it's closer to 12 if I remember right when I was talking to the guy at the brewery the other day. But this is the take on one of their other beers. It's called the Mother of All Triples. It's a Belgian triple ale, so it's insanely strong, and it's a Belgian beer, so it kind of tastes like, dirty socks, if you will. But I'm a huge fan of that situation. But this is their special winter seasonal that they made this year. And instead of just their standard, moat, as they call it, the Mother of All Triples, instead of their standard triple recipe, they made it with a shit ton of cherries, I guess. And I got a little preview of it before it came out a couple weeks ago, and it's stupid good. So let's do that now. Look at that. And I even put it in the purple glass because it's such a strong beer. It's never served out of a pint glass. You always got to do it in a cool little fancy glass like this. Ooh, and I haven't had this since it came out, so I'm very, very excited. Oh, man. Yeah, that's thick, man. Thick. Whew. That'll keep you warm during these cold winter nights. If it tastes... If it tastes like dirty socks, I can only imagine how it smells. I always just say that, Deborah, because it's a Belgian ale. And Belgian beers kind of always have like a weird, kind of like, I don't know, what's the right word? Like tangy smell to it. But I'm a huge fan. But I know some beer drinkers that love craft beers and all this stuff. They just don't get down on Belgian beers. So it's, to each their own. I'm just a big sucker for Belgian beers. Well, happy Friday, everybody. Once again, thank you for joining me. I'm very excited. Over here in the Pacific Northwest, we got lots of snow on the ground already. It's a whole deal. Slipping and sliding all over the roads. And then we got some more snow coming in tonight. Very glad that Donovan doesn't have to try to make it all the way out here for a podcast tomorrow, because that would be like a whole deal. Oh, man, I have been sitting here. I am so glad that the show finally started, because I've just been sitting here for like the last hour and a half, 2 hours, just sitting refresh on Twitter, waiting for all this to go down, because this started earlier today with a tweet from the Elon himself. No beer for me. I'm California sober, but I'm smoking on some grape cream cake from SF Cultivators. Well, shout out, Kevin. That's so funny, because I kind of quit smoking weed recently. But, dude, smoke away, dude. Get it. I'm California sober. So that means no alcohol, but just weed? I mean, that works. That works on a lot of levels, to be perfectly honest. It's probably better for you. Hell, alcohol's terrible. But I love it. I love it. So anyways, we started here earlier today. Got me all hot and bothered. I wasn't even going to do this for the show today. I had a whole thing about like authoritarianism, and then I was going to, I had a bunch of videos from like Chinese protests, just getting their ass handed to them by the dictatorial government over there for their zero COVID stuff. And we're going to talk about Iran and some, they're, taking a look back at Australia and all their authoritarian policies. But Elon decided to break news today when he said, What really happened with the Hunter Biden story suppression by Twitter will be published on Twitter at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Yeah, that's what it means. LOL. Any get this Twitter thing. I was following it for a while. Oh, but we'll break it all down. Long story short, a bunch of the super woke execs at Twitter decided that you couldn't see the Hunter Biden laptop story when it came out, or anything associated with it, and them trying to cover up their ass for it. But we'll get into that. So, yeah, he tweeted this thing, said they were going to be going live at 5, and then about 10 minutes before 5, he was like, well, actually, we're double checking some facts, so probably start live tweeting in about 40 minutes. 2 hours later, or about an hour and a half later, I think it really was, he finally said, here you go, with a link to Matt Taibbi's Twitter, which was interesting. And it turns out that Matt Taibbi, if you guys don't know, he's an independent journalist, used to work at some of the big corporate press guys, but ultimately, I think he was fired a while back. I don't remember. He talked all about it on Rogan one time. But now he's got a really awesome Substack, which is just fantastic. If you enjoy reading articles and things like that, I highly recommend you subscribe to his Substack. It is fantastic. So anyways, he's given Matt Taibbi the scoop, which is just going to skyrocket his popularity. And so he initially started oh, good, we got so much more to catch up on. I'm so excited. There's new stuff I haven't seen yet. We're going to go up to the top here. It's a very long, why would you do this on Twitter? I don't really know. I hope he just eventually releases the whole thing on his Substack, because this has kind of been nail-bitingly annoying with how long this has taken. So he starts the thread off, it's, going on about an hour ago now. It just says, the Twitter files. So what you're about to read is the first installment in a series based upon thousands of internal documents obtained by sources at Twitter. The Twitter files tell an incredible story from inside one of the world's largest and most influential social media platforms. It is a Frankensteinian tale of a human-built mechanism grown out of control of its designer. The whole beginning of this thing, everybody was freaking out at him because he's just giving a bunch of context and backstory to what Twitter is and blah, blah, blah. And eventually he gets to the point, which you'll read here in a second. So Twitter in its conception was a brilliant tool for enabling instant mass communications, making a true real-time global conversation possible for the first time. In an early conception, Twitter more than lived up to its mission statement, giving people, quote, the power to create and share ideas and information instantaneously without barriers. As time progressed, however, the company was slowly forced to add those barriers. Some of the first tools of controlling speech were designed to combat the likes of spam and financial fraudsters. Slowly, over time, Twitter staff and executives began to find more and more issues for these tools. Outsiders began petitioning the company to manipulate speech as well. First a little, then more often, then constantly. BRB, Deborah says. Okay, well, you just hurry up there, Deborah. We won't really hang out that much because you can rewind. So then, watching because I was just following this whole thing as it was going. And you could see every time, it was probably 2 or 3 minutes between posts. And every time the comments would instantly come up and be like, get to the fucking point, get to the point, hurry up, this is driving me insane. But then he comes out with his first little drop here. It says, by 2020, requests from connected actors to delete tweets were routine. One executive would write to another, quote, more to review from the Biden team, end quote. The reply would come back, handled. Then he shows you a little screenshot from email or Slack. I'm not really sure what this is, but more to review from the Biden team. And then it lists a number of counts and specific posts. And they say, thanks. And they say, handled these. And I'm assuming we know what that means at this point. Celebrities and unknowns alike could be removed or reviewed at the behest of a political party. And then it shows one from October 25th. And so this is right around 2020 election time. It's right beforehand. Obviously, we're right in the heat of things at the end of October. So I grabbed the first one under SI, which would be safety enforcement, I think. They'll go on to say what that is again. Defer to safety on the high-profile second one. And so you can take a look here. Stephen Lujan, yeah, I think that was his name. Obviously, this guy was like, well, I'm going to handle this first one. But then you got the real James Woods down there. We all remember back when James Wood wasn't in Twitter jail. I think this is the email that got him in Twitter jail right here. It says, they grabbed the first one, but they wanted to send it up to a higher power over at safety to take care of James Woods. And then Matt Taibbi continues, both parties had access to these tools. For instance, in 2020, requests from both the Trump White House and the Biden campaign were received and honored. However, the system wasn't balanced. It was based on contacts. Because Twitter was and is overwhelmingly staffed by people of one political orientation, there were more channels, more ways to complain open to the left, well, Democrats, than the right. And then they have a link to the open secrets going over where you can just go see how much money is given to certain companies and so on and so forth. And he shows the breakdown between 2018, 2020, and 2022. Total amount, percentage to from Dems, and percent from Republicans. So obviously incredibly one-sided, even in 2018 when it's not as bad. But by the time you hit 2020, you're at 1.5%, and 2022, you're almost non-existent at that point. Goes on to say, the resulting slant in content moderation decisions is visible in the documents you're about to read. However, it's also the assessment of multiple current and former high-level executives. And then you'll notice here we jump from 12 to 16. And I think Matt Taibbi's phone was blown up saying, bro, you got to wrap this pre-log up here. He says, okay, there was more throat clearing about the process, but screw it. Let's jump forward. And then he jumps into 16. The Twitter files, part 1, how and why Twitter blocked the Hunter Biden laptop story. On October 14th, 2020, the New York Post published Biden's secret emails, an expose based on the content of Hunter Biden's abandoned laptop. And as just a nice special, kind of refuck you, they sent over the original New York Post story. So if you were not lucky enough to get your hands on it back then and you haven't since, you can today. And this was an amazing story that they put out with lots of contacts and lots of, all the connections between Hunter in Ukraine and his dad and the business dealings and the drugs and the sex and all the things. It was fantastic. It was a great story. I saw it when it first came out, and then it disappeared. So then we didn't see it again for a long time, and I believe we talked about it on the show. He continues, Twitter took extraordinary steps to suppress the story, removing links and posting warnings that it would be, quote, unsafe. They then blocked its transmission via direct message, a tool hereto reserved for extreme cases, in example, child pornography. White House spokeswoman Kayleigh McEnany was locked out of her account for tweeting about the story, prompting a furious letter from Trump campaign staffer Mike Hahn, who seethed, at least pretend to care about the next 20 days. So then they show the exchange here, the email exchange or direct message. I don't know how this is all kind of coming in at this point, but you can see it's from Mike Hahn over at donaldtrump.com, and it's to customer service and Lauren Duvall, Twitter government and politics. Kayleigh McEnany has been locked out of her account for simply talking about the New York Post story. All she did was cite the story and firsthand reporting that has been reported by other outlets and not disputed by the Biden campaign. I need an answer immediately on when, how she will be unblocked. I also don't appreciate how nobody on this team called me regarding the news that you'll be censoring news articles. Like I said, at least pretend to care for the next 20 days, because this is right before the election, if we all recall. And here you have a White House staffer, the spokeswoman for the White House, having her Twitter account blocked because she shared this story at one point. It goes on. This led public policy executive Caroline Strom to send out a polite what the fuck query. Several employees noted that there was tension between the comms/policy teams, who had little less control over moderation, and the safety teams. So it shows the email. Hi, team. Are we able to take a closer look here? Thank you. So now we're talking about the suspension of Kayleigh McEnany for sharing the story. Strom's note returned the answer that the laptop story had been removed for violation of the company's hacked materials policy. Muy importante. And then they sent us a link to their archived version of, the current hacked materials policy at Twitter at the time. And they show the note. Thanks for reaching out. Says, it's from Sato? Yeah. Aline Sato. Thanks for reaching out to us. Per checking, the user was bounced by Site Integrity. That was the SI, Site Integrity, for violating our hacked materials policy, adding them here for further insights and guidance. Although several sources recalled hearing about a general warning from federal law enforcement that summer about possible foreign hacks, there's no evidence that I've seen of any government involvement in the laptop story. In fact, that might have been the problem. The decision was made at the highest levels of the company, but without the knowledge of CEO Jack Dorsey, with former head of legal policy and trust, Vijay Gadde, playing a key role. We all remember her. They just freelanced it, is how one former employee characterized the decision. Hacking was the excuse, but within a few hours, pretty much everyone realized that wasn't going to hold, but no one had the guts to reverse it. You could see the confusion in the following lengthy exchange, which ends up including Gadde and former Trust and Safety Chief Yoel Roth. Comms Officer Trenton Kennedy writes, I'm struggling to understand the policy basis for making this unsafe. So we'll read. This is from the privilege. We're at Privilege and Confidential now. So I'm assuming all these are taking place on their Slack channel. Trenton Kennedy, I'm struggling to understand the policy basis for making this marking this as unsafe, and I think the best explainability argument for this externally would be that we're waiting to understand if this story is the result of hacked materials. We'll face hard questions on this if we don't have some kind of solid reasoning for marking the link unsafe. Kate replies, will we also mark similar stories unsafe? And then link to a Fox News article about the New York Post article. By this time, everyone knew this was fucked, said one former employee, but the response was essentially to err on the side of continue to err. So we go back to Yoel Roth. The policy basis is hacked materials, though, as discussed, this is an emerging situation where the facts remain unclear. Given the severe risk here and lessons of 2016, we're erring on the side of including a warning and preventing this content from being amplified. Okay, so now they're sitting back and saying that, okay, so we're not necessarily going to ban you right away, but we're going to put in this warning, and then we're going to make sure that the algorithm doesn't amplify this. What is the warning that will come up? This is new. Actually, I think this is just marking as new on this. When you click the link, you'll see the generic unsafe URL messages, refer spam, malware, and violations of the Twitter rules. Not ideal, but it's the only thing we have. Whatever we do in the comms, this will become a bias claim for Jack pre-hearing immediately, because at this point, Jack was going to be going into some senatorial or congressional hearings. Let's make it clear we're proactively but cautiously interpreting this through the lens of our hack materials policy and allowing the link with a warning and significant reduction of spread. So they're trying to justify why they wanted to do this, because they're realizing now that the heat's going to come down. Former VP of Global Comms Brennan Borman asked, can we truthfully claim this is part of the policy? To Ian's point, can we truthfully claim that this is a part of the policy, i.e., as part of our approach to addressing potentially hacked materials, we are limiting visibility of related stories on Twitter while our investigation is ongoing? 28, to which former Deputy General Counsel Jim Baker again seemed to advise staying the non-course because, quote, caution is warranted. Oy. So this from Jim Baker, Privilege and Confidential. I support the conclusion that we need more facts to assess whether materials were hacked. At this stage, however, it is reasonable for us to assume that they may have been and that caution is warranted. There are some facts that indicate that the materials have been hacked, while there are others indicating the computers were either abandoned and or the owner consented to allow the repair shop to access it for at least some purpose. We simply need more information. We all know now, obviously, none of this was hacked. And I think they knew this wasn't hacked either, because they made it pretty clear in the New York Post story back then that it wasn't hacked. It was just it was available through the shop owner. Let's see here. A foundational problem with tech companies and content moderation. Many people in charge of speech now care little about speech and have to be told the basics of outsiders. To wit. Oh, this is all new to me. Nice. I haven't liked or retweeted yet. 30. In one humorous exchange on day one, Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna reached out to Gotti to gently suggest she hop on the phone to talk about the backlash re-speech. Khanna was the only Democrat official I could find in the files who expressed concern. So this is from Ro Khanna on his Gmail account. I like that. Generating huge backlash on Hill re-speech. Happy to chat if you're up for it. Best, Ro. Gotta replies quickly, immediately diving into the weeds of Twitter policy, unaware Khanna is more worried about the Bill of Rights. Oh, I love this. This is all new to me now, too. We've officially caught up to where I had got this when we first started. Congressman Khanna, thank you for reaching out, and we appreciate the heads up. We put out a clarifying thread of tweets earlier this evening to explain our policy around the posting of private information and linking directly to hacked materials. The press secretary's account was not permanently suspended. We requested that she delete the tweet containing material that is in violation of our rules, and her account is restricted until she complies. That's a baller move. That is a baller move. I have the power here. Kaylee McEnany, you don't get your account back unless you delete the Twitter that we are now lying to everybody about being hacked materials. I'd be happy to jump on the phone if help with my team in D.C. Jessica and Lauren are copied here and also available to discuss. Khanna tries to reroute the conversation to the First Amendment mention of which is generally hard to find in the files. Ro Khanna to Vijay. Excuse me. Hope you're well, Vijay. But this seems a violation of the First Amendment policies. If there is a hack of classified information or other information that could expose a serious war crime and the New York Times was to publish it, I think the New York Times should have that right. A journalist should not be held accountable for the illegal actions of the source unless they actively aided to hack. So to restrict the distribution of that material, especially regarding a presidential candidate, seems not to be in keeping with the principles of New York Times v. Sullivan. Oh, drops the New York Times v. Sullivan. I say this as a total Biden partisan and convinced he didn't do anything wrong, but the story now has become more about censorship than relatively innocuous emails, and it's become a bigger deal than it would have been. It also is now leading to serious efforts to curtail Section 230, many of which would have been a mistake. I believe Twitter itself should curtail what it recommends or puts in Twitter trending news, and your policy against QAnon groups is all good. It's a hard balance. But in the heat of the presidential campaign, restricting dissemination of newspaper articles, even if New York Post is far right, seems like it will invite more backlash than it would do good. Please keep this communication between just us and Jack, and no need to CC the team or forward it to them. Just wanted to offer my 2 cents. Hot take from Ro Khanna on that one. Holy ball. Okay, so we're on number 32, and we've officially run out. So let's hit refresh and see if there's more, because I want more. 33. Within a day, I just don't want, this is like, it's so good. It just has to be fattening, right? This is so good. We've been waiting for this for so long. Within a day, head of public policy, Lauren Culbertson received a ghastly letter report from Carl Zabo of the research firm NetChoice, which had already pulled 12 members of Congress, 9 Republicans, 3 Democrats from the House Judiciary Committee to rep Judy Chu's office. Okay. Lauren, yesterday NetChoice's Chris Marches met informally with 9 Republicans and 3 Democratic House staffers to gather intel about Facebook and Twitter and the New York Post story. The staffers hail from the House Judiciary Committee to Representative Judy Chu's office. That's a hell of an email there. NetChoice lets Twitter know a bloodbath awaits in upcoming Hill hearings, with members saying it's a tipping point. Excuse me. Problem with doing a beer show. Beer does not work too well when you also have to talk a lot. But we shall overcome. Complaining tech has grown so big that they can't even regulate themselves, so government may need to intervene. High-level takeaway, every Republican said this is a tipping point. It's just too much, and both Democrats and Republicans were angry. 35. So reports to Twitter that some Hill figures are characterizing the laptop story as Tech's Access Hollywood moment. Oh! When asked just how bad the situation is, one staffer said it's Tech's Access Hollywood moment, and it has no Hillary to hide behind. Oh, others were more blunt. Tech is screwed, and rightfully so. That's classy. Twitter files continued. The First Amendment isn't absolute. Szabo's letter, Szabo's, yeah, that one's throwing me off with the Z there. It's probably Szabo. Letter contains chilling passages relaying Democratic lawmakers' attitudes. There were more moderation as for the Bill of Rights, it's not absolute. Yeah, of course not. That's what authoritarians always love to say. The Democrats, meanwhile, complain that the companies are inept. I mean, fact check true. They let conservatives muddy the waters and make the Biden campaign look corrupt, even though Biden is innocent. I mean, I had you on your first part, but now you're just giving the game away. They linked this to Hillary Clinton's email scandal. She did nothing wrong, but because the press wouldn't let the story go, it became a scandal far out of proportion. Pause fucking button, you crazy ass motherfucker. She did nothing wrong. She did nothing. You're about to put Trump in jail for stuff that he did that were not even half as bad as what Hillary Clinton did. For God's sakes. Anyways, it doesn't moderate enough harmful content, so when it does, like it did yesterday, it becomes a story. If the companies moderated more, conservatives wouldn't even think to use social media for disinformation, misinformation, or otherwise. Who the fuck said this? The Democrats were in agreement. Social media needs to moderate more because they're corrupting. Oh my gosh, I can talk. They're corrupting democracy and making all truth relative. When pushed on how the government might insist on that, consistent with the First Amendment, they demurred the First Amendment isn't absolute. They would love nothing more than the First Amendment not to be absolute, right? See if there's more. Fuck all this bullshit. They're fucking new and blocked it anyways. Amen. Okay, what else you got here, Matt? So he takes a pause in the thread. An amazing subplot of the Twitter Hunter Biden laptop affair was how much was done without the knowledge of CEO Jack Dorsey and how long it took for the situation to get unfucked, as one employee put it, even after Dorsey jumped in. Yeah, that's no good there, bud. None of this is... I mean, is anybody surprised at this? Is anybody surprised that this was happening? I'm not. This is all just... It's all just essentially making it crystal clear now what we all thought was going on behind the doors. Especially in the preceding years up until Elon actually bought and took over the company. We all knew this was happening in one way or another. This is really no surprise to me, except now it's in black and white and it's proof. I believe this is what they call proof or evidence. So now I'm wondering, what do you guys think? What happens now that this story is coming out? I'm assuming this thread is not done yet. Hopefully he's got more coming. because, I mean, that's juicy. That's good stuff, but there's way more than this. There's way more than this. Said reviewed thousands of documents. Plus, he only ever did part 1. Yeah, there's definitely got to be more coming out. Come on, Matt, let's go. We're at 4:55, 5 minutes ago. There's definitely more could be coming. Just sit here and do what I've been doing for the last couple hours, sitting here and just playing the refresh game. It's a whole deal, man. This is like the worst way to disseminate a massively interesting story. Will anything happen? I don't know. I don't know what you can do now because, I mean, realistically, back then, it was a private company. I mean, it was publicly owned, but that doesn't mean that it's state-owned. It's not nationalized. It's just on the public market. But at the end of the day, it's owned and operated by a board of private individuals. Now that it's owned by a sole proprietor, essentially, I don't know if there's anything markedly different as far as legality goes here. I mean, if they wanted to censor something and lie about it, what's to say they couldn't do that, I guess? I mean, we all just continually shadow banning people and make just from the makeup of the company. I mean, there's 1,000 different aspects to talk about when it comes to Twitter, but this, I mean, at the end of the day, what do you do about it other than buy it and take it over? Like, buy it in a hostile takeover and change it for the better. I don't know what else you can do. I mean, they can lie about it as much as they want. It's not illegal to lie about it. It might be some legality issues when it comes to, like, you know, defrauding your investors or something like that. Some pretty kind of like deep level white collar type crimes and stuff like that. I'm not knowledgeable enough in that realm, thankfully, to even comprehend what could happen. But I just want more, Matt. You're killing me, bud. You are killing me. Oh, this is going to be rough. This is going to be all that's happening. So how does it apply to Section 230? Well, Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act that's true. They could have violated 230 by... That's a really good point to bring up there, Deborah, because, yeah, Section 230 essentially says that you're not a lawyer, and I'm not 100% totally up to date on this, but my layman plebite brain says that Section 230 essentially has a qualifying difference between publishers and platforms. And publishers, when you become a publisher, you're taking editorial control of what happens on your site. And so if somebody goes on to your platform like that, say the New York Post, right? The New York Post drops we got a notification. I think it's another thread. We'll continue on in a second. But yeah, if you're like the New York Post, you are subject to 230 by saying everything that you publish as a publisher, you are wholly responsible for. So if you put out blatant lies to the public or you defame somebody or something like that, then you could be held liable for that. Versus a platform, if somebody jumps on your platform and says a bunch of crazy ass nonsense or says something blatantly illegal, direct calls to violence, posts some kind of child exploitation material, something like that, the platform can't be held reliable for that. The user can. So that's, and I don't know how that totally affects 230 here. 230 also gets a little complicated when it comes to free speech aspects of these platforms. I mean, it's something we've been arguing about for a long time. There's a lot of reform calls for 230. Some people just want to get rid of it. Some people want to make it way stronger, but actually define things. That way platforms like the New York Times and Washington Post can't just blatantly lie to people about the things that they lie to people about all the time. There's a lot of defamation they get around by claiming 230 protections and stuff like that. So that's, I mean, who knows the fallout that's going to come from this. People like Jim Jordan on the Hill, he's going to be just in it to win it after this. Oh, nice. We got some more. Okay, let's catch up. Where were we? So, boom, 36. Yep, an amazing thing. So, while reviewing Gotti's emails, I saw a familiar name, my own. Dorsey sent her a copy of my Substack article, blasting the incident. What the shit? Look at Matt Taibbi, bro. That's some Inception. With a Hunter Biden expose, suppression is a bigger scandal than the actual story. Man, it was. There you go. Get Matt Taibbi at Substack.com. Get over there. Subscribe to him. He's an awesome read, by the way. He's always breaking down cool shit. Obviously, he got the scoop from Elon. How do you get that gig? How do you just homies with Elon so much that he's like, all right, well, I'm going to have you release the Twitter files, bro. I got it all ready to go. He's probably been working with them on it for a long time, I would assume. That's killer. All right, enough fluff, Matt. Give me some more dirt. This is killing me. I wonder how long it's going to take him to do this. Because we're already at, let's see, over an hour. What time was that? That was 3:34. So it's an hour, my ass. It's been an hour and a half so far, and he's only, we've just scratched the surface, I guarantee it. Oh, it's going to be so good. So good. Come on, Matt. Let's get one more before we pull the plug here. Oh, man. I'm so glad I got a nice heavy drink to drink this. Because this. I've been waiting here for hours. Hours, I'm telling you. Just hitting refresh. Just hitting refresh. Going on to Elon Musk's Twitter. Just hitting refresh. Waiting for this thing to drop. And he finally puts the here we go. Popcorn. Oh, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. Well, that's just probably going to be where it's at for now. We might get one more, but I think this is it for now. We will obviously be talking about this. I guarantee we're going to be talking about this on the next episode of podcast, which comes out on the 10th. So next Saturday, not this Saturday, but next Saturday. We'll be doing that at, I'm assuming, normal standard time here, noon, on this here YouTube channel. We haven't discussed it yet, but I'm sure that's the plan at this moment. And if it is not, I will get back to you guys with an updated time and all that good stuff. But yeah, it's fantastic. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Yeah, we'll be, I think next week is the last show of the year. I believe. I'd have to check my calendar, but I don't want to pull it out right now. But I believe that's the last show of the year. For you new folk here, obviously haven't been following us for 4 years at this point, but we always take a break at the end of the year. Take about a month off. And usually there's, this year there's some really heavy lifting that's going to go on in the background. We got a whole nother studio to set up over at Donovan's new house, which is going to be awesome. And but we'll be still doing beer shows every week, unless of course something comes up. Checking the calendar, Friday. Yeah, I don't see any reason why we won't be continuing to do beer shows the entirety of the year. So yeah, with that, let's close this out. If you're not following Matt Taibbi over on Twitter, make sure to do that or subscribe to his Substack. I guarantee you there's going to be some kind of article about this that he's going to post on his Substack at some point. And we will see you all on Saturday, noon, right here, noon Pacific time. And of course, I will see you here again for another Friday night beer show at 4:30 Pacific time. And everybody have a great weekend. Thanks for hanging out. Have a great weekend, Deborah. And we'll see you all laters.